In this podcast, we'll discuss common naming of ketones. All right, so we learned a couple podcasts ago how to name aldehydes using the common naming system. Oftentimes, students will confuse the common naming for aldehydes and the common naming for ketones. They are completely 100% different, so be very careful of that when you go into it. Aldehydes are using your new prefixes, form, acete, propion, butyr. Ketones don't use any of that. So the rules are pretty simple. You're going to name the alkyl groups bonded to the carbonyl, followed by the word ketone. So what I mean by name the alkyl groups bonded to the carbonyl is we're going to take a box, we're going to put a box around this carbonyl because I'm not including this carbon in either of the alkyl groups on the side. So I have an alkyl group here, and I have an alkyl group here. Notice that I'm not including the carbon of the carbonyl. You're counting these as alkyl groups that are coming off as branches to the carbonyl. So here I have an ethyl group and I have a methyl group. So I'm going to alphabetize those just like I always have. So the common name for this would be ethyl, and I'm giving a space. These are three separate words, methyl, and the word ketone. Easy enough? Okay, for the next example, I'm going to put my box around the carbonyl. I don't trust that I won't accidentally count it as part of an alkyl group. So it's in a box, can't use it. Here we have 1, 2, I see those hydrogens are behind the carbon. ChemDraw will do that sometimes, so be looking out for that, but it's 2 carbons, so that's an ethyl group. And here I have 4 carbons, which is a butyl group. Alphabetize and end with ketone. So this is butyl, because B comes before E, ethyl, ketone. And again, these are for a lot more simple ketones. If you have branches coming off, by default, you're going to have to switch over to using your IUPAC naming for ketones if there's branches or if it gets any more complex. Just kidding, it's not totally just that simple. We have a couple ketones to note. These are ketones that students struggle with, and they're ones that you're just going to have to commit to memory. So this top ketone looks simple enough. If we were to give this the IUPAC name, it is 1, 2, 3 carbons long, so we would call that propanone. Using our common naming system, we would not include the center carbonyl. It has 2 methyl groups. We don't want to repeat methyl-methyl because you sound crazy. So we would say dimethyl ketone, just like in an ether. If you had 2 methyl groups coming off of a single oxygen, it would be dimethyl ether, dimethyl ketone. This one, though, has a third common name, and you have to know this because I love to ask on quizzes and tests, what are the 3 names for this molecule? The second common name, and you've heard this one before because it's used much more frequently than all the others, is acetone. And I know I told you that we're not going to use acete. It has 2 carbons on either side of the carbonyl, hence the acete, but this is the one time ketones get to use that. This next structure is an aromatic, a benzene ring that has a ketone attached to it. The name of this by itself is acetophenone. This is treated as the parent chain. So if you see a ketone coming off of the benzene ring, and it will never directly come off of, you're never going to see it directly come off. That's too many bonds for a carbon. You will never see that. But if you see a ketone coming off of an aromatic, it's acetophenone. If we had additional branches, we treat acetophenone as the parent chain. So acetophenone is my parent chain, and then I deal with the position of that branch. So I have an ethyl group that is in the 3rd position. So I could call this 3-ethyl acetophenone because your ketone is going to get position number 1 and you want to get the next lowest number, so you have to count in the direction that gives you a lower carbon. We could also use our OMP designations, and 1 and 3 is M, so this could also be M-ethyl acetophenone. All right, so make sure you commit acetophenone and acetone /dimethyl ketone /propanone to your memory.